Well, I want to welcome everyone. My name is Kelly Sadler, and I'm Director of Surrogates and Coalition Outreach here at the White House. I want to thank you all for attending. This is a continuing series that we're doing, listening to the women in America and having conversations, learning what concerns you and how this administration can confront your concerns head on, not only confront them, but solve them. As you know, women are not a special interest group. We represent 53% of the electorate, and we care about 100% of the issues. To be a feminist means you can pursue whatever life you want to, whether that's a stay-at-home mom, whether that's pursuing a full-time career, whether that's going into public life, into politics, whether that's becoming a caregiver. You should have the opportunity to pursue your dreams. And that's what we here at the Trump administration want to encourage you to do. We are going to be listening to all types of women today, their concerns and confronting their concerns on 3 panels. The first of which is an economic panel. The second, we're going to be talking about healthcare and opioids. And lastly, we're going to wrap up with national security and public policy, everything of which concerns you in your everyday life. We will be doing another one of these events in March, and we'll be looking at the international perspective in foreign policy. But right now, I would love to bring to the stage our press secretary, Sarah Sanders, Ivanka Trump, our Secretary of Transportation, Elaine Chao, and our SBA Administrator, Linda McMahon.
Give everybody a second to get seated. Good afternoon. Thank you all so much for being here. I'm mostly excited because I'm not answering any of the questions during this session, and I get to help moderate, which is a nice change of pace for me. I'll take those tough questions later today, so I'm very happy to tag in some of the brightest and best that the administration has. As the president has said, we are all focused on making our economy a place where women can work, succeed, and thrive like never before. The president has empowered so many women throughout his career in the private sector, and now he's doing that here at the White House. I'm excited to be joined here on stage by several of those women now. They need no introduction, but because I'm here and you guys aren't, I'm going to give one anyway because it's my chance to brag on some of the administration's finest. I'll start with Ivanka Trump, who is an advisor to the president. In her role, she focuses on the education and economic empowerment of women and families, as well as job creation and economic growth through workforce development, skills training, and entrepreneurship, which, given her success in business, is something she obviously knows a lot about. In addition to being one of the most successful women in the administration, she also happens to be the president's daughter. And because of that, it has led to her getting all of the most glamorous assignments around here. For instance, instead of traveling all over Asia with the president late last year on Air Force One, she was riding Amtrak up and down along the eastern seaboard to sell tax reform. And it obviously worked because every member of Congress that she engaged with ended up voting for the biggest tax cut in American history and ensured that the child tax credit would help all families. In addition to being successful in business, Ivanka and her husband Jared have 3 incredible young children. And I can personally vouch for because my kids are of similar ages and hers are far better behaved. So I think I may see if I can work out a deal and send my kids to Jared and Ivanka's house. In all seriousness, she's one of the most successful women, not just in the administration, but in the country. And it's a true honor for us to have her here at the White House to help lead on a number of issues. And with that, I'll turn it over to Ivanka.
Thank you so much, Sarah, for that gracious introduction. I will say, though, to everyone present, your children are much, much better behaved. It is incredible to be here today with this great group of women business owners, entrepreneurs, thought leaders from across the country, and to sit alongside this formidable group of women who represent this great administration. I am excited to engage with each of you in a substantive discussion about how this administration is empowering women to succeed in the American economy and around the globe. Domestically, we have been prioritizing our administration's working family agenda with the goal of ensuring that all Americans succeed in the modern economy. This agenda includes workforce development and job training, as well as family-friendly legislation and policies, all of which are critical to this mission. To ensure that Americans, from students to those that are in mid or late career, have the skills necessary to secure well-paying jobs, this administration has been investing deeply in our country's most valuable assets, the American people. We recognize that there are many paths to family-sustaining jobs outside of four-year college, and therefore we have been focused on expanding access to apprenticeship, technical education, and workforce training programs. We will continue this push in the months to come through both legislative and executive actions. Last fall, the President issued a presidential memorandum directing the Department of Education to prioritize computer science and STEM education in our schools, grades K through 12, thereby aligning the skills being taught in the classroom with the jobs in demand in the modern economy. We were joined in this mission by the private sector, which announced a contribution of more than $350 million for youth STEM education. While workforce initiatives are important to all Americans, as we embark on this fourth industrial revolution, it is critical to ensure that women are not left behind. For example, while women represent 47% of the overall U.S. workforce, they make up only 13% of engineers and 21% of tech sector employees. It is essential that we reverse this trend and that women cease to be underrepresented in these well-paying and fast-growing sectors of the economy. We are committed to doing just that. 1 month ago, as Sarah referenced, Congress passed the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, and President Trump signed the bill into law. This was a historic milestone for America, American families, American workers, and American industry, and the economy as a whole. We are starting to see more of the impact of the tax plan already, even prior to it fully being implemented. More than 100 companies have pledged to give bonuses, increase wages, and invest in their employees as a result of the tremendous savings that they will have under the new tax law. These tax cuts are for American workers and hardworking parents, and now they will be able to keep more of their hard-earned paychecks. In addition to doubling the standard deduction, a central component of the tax plan is an expanded child tax credit, doubling to $2,000 per child, and a new dependent care tax credit. Also, very critically, we maintained, as part of this new tax plan, important credits for American families, such as the Child and Dependent Care Credit and the Adoption Credit. Many elements of our working family agenda are realized through tax reform, as we are empowering American families to thrive. Further, we are working with members of Congress on both sides of the aisle and thought leaders across this country, many of which are in this room today, to build strong coalitions of support for a national paid family leave program. This is essential and long overdue. We must recognize the changing composition of our American workforce, in which all parents work in the vast majority of American homes, and support both work and family. Finally, we are committed to fueling American entrepreneurship and innovation. Women, especially minority women, are the fastest growing category of small business owner. Through tax reform, small businesses will now pay the lowest tax rate in over 80 years. Through incredible programs, such as those that Administrator McMahon has at the Small Business Administration and across government, we are eliminating barriers to women in accessing capital, networks, and mentorship. For example, SBA lent women-owned businesses $120 million more last year compared to the year prior. Our commitment to the economic empowerment of women extends throughout the globe through incredible initiatives with the State Department, USAID, and other agencies, as well as domestic and international partners such as the World Bank Group, with which we launched the Women's Entrepreneur Finance Initiative last July to support women entrepreneurs in the developing world. It's an honor to be here today to talk about our deep commitment to empowering women and their families. And I thank you for joining me and engaging in this conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ivanka. Linda McMahon serves as the administrator of the U.S. Small Business Administration. And like Ivanka, she had one of the, and still has one of the more glamorous jobs, which I know she loves, and we're so proud and thankful to have her. She played an important role in the process of getting the tax legislation passed, and will continue pushing for that. As a member of President Trump's cabinet, she advocates on behalf of the 30 million small businesses in America and makes sure entrepreneurs have the support and tools they need to start, grow, and succeed in business. Prior to joining the Trump administration, she had the perfect job to prepare her to wrestle with the media and fight on behalf of America's small businesses, as she was the founder and CEO of World Wrestling Entertainment. A few of you got that joke. Some of you will get it a little later, but Administrator McMahon knows a lot about how to help grow and empower small business, since she helped grow hers from a 13-person regional operation to a publicly traded global enterprise with more than 800 employees and offices worldwide. She and her husband Vince have 2 adult children and 6 grandchildren, which I'm sure she spoils a lot. So with that, I will turn it over to Administrator McMahon.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It really is a great honor to be here and to share the dais with Secretary Chao and with Ivanka, whom I have close relationships with, and we really enjoy getting out into doing our glamorous jobs. And Elaine will get to wear hard hats more often than we do, but it really is an honor, and this is a great opportunity for us to talk a little bit today about what this White House has done to ensure economic opportunity for all, and especially for women. Women are the primary breadwinners in more than 40% of households, and the tax reform signed into law by President Trump last month will help put more money into those paychecks. And probably no one in this room did more to get the tax reform passed than Ivanka, but especially focusing on the child care and the child tax credits. That's really been, no pun intended, her baby. And she really innovated that and really pushed hard for it. As head of the U.S. Small Business Administration, I've had the privilege of meeting with small business owners all over the country, including many women entrepreneurs. They find that owning their own business is a terrific way for them to secure their own financial future for themselves, to provide for their families, and to exercise their commitment to their communities. It's rewarding, but there are also a lot of responsibilities. As an entrepreneur myself, I can tell you it's tough. Chasing leads and managing cash flow and worrying about things like payroll, often sacrificing your own paycheck so your employees can get paid. I bet there are a lot of women in this room that are entrepreneurs. Look, I see a lot of heads shaking, nodding. And tax reform is especially good news for women entrepreneurs, who will soon have more money to reinvest in their businesses. The latest research shows that women not only own 11.6 million businesses in the United States. Now think about it, 11.6 out of about 29.6 million small businesses in total. They employ nearly 9 million workers. Women-owned businesses provide more than $293.1 billion in wages and salaries to employees and contribute to, and this is an impressive number, $1.7 trillion in sales to our national economy. Congratulations, ladies. That's a really accomplishment. Nearly 48% of women-owned firms cited taxes as a factor that impacted their profitability. So with the new tax reform policy, we're definitely going to help that. And it was spearheaded by President Trump and will make businesses more profitable and successful. And this administration is also working very hard to help women entrepreneurs have an easier time managing their businesses by cutting so many of the wasteful and expensive regulations that hamper job growth. You know, when the president first came into office, his directive was for every new regulation you wanted, you had to get rid of 2. Well, he kind of went over that, so it was 22 to 1. So 22-1 regulations. And we are on a positive trajectory for significant economic prosperity, saving small businesses over $8.1 billion in regulatory costs. Think about that. You could take that $8.1 billion and put it back into your business to grow your business, hire more people, open more offices, all of those things. Tax reform, getting rid of the regulations, this is a lot of money that is going back to our entrepreneurs. Last year, the SBA provided training and coaching to nearly 150,000 individuals through our women's business centers located in communities across the nation. And I'm excited about the future for women business owners as America becomes the best place to start and operate a business in the entire world. Thank you.
Thank you, Administrator McMahon. And now, last but certainly not least, Secretary Elaine Chao, the U.S. Secretary of Transportation. Secretary Chao is the second time serving our nation as part of the President's Cabinet, only one of two women to ever do so in our country's history. She previously served as the U.S. Secretary of Labor from 2001 to January of 2009 and is the first Asian American woman to be appointed to the President's Cabinet in American history. Her exemplary career, which also includes successful stints as CEO of United Way of America and Director of the Peace Corps, is rivaled only by her inspiring personal story. She arrived in America at the age of 8, speaking no English, and became a U.S. citizen at the age of 19, earned an economics degree from Mount Holyoke College and an MBA from Harvard. She has since received 36 honorary doctorate degrees and has been a distinguished fellow at the Heritage Foundation and the Hudson Institute. And if all of that wasn't enough, she's also married to someone most of you may have heard of, Majority Leader of the United States Senate, Mitch McConnell. With that, Secretary Chao.
Thank you very much. We love Sarah. My sisters are like incredible fans of hers. And as she was going through my bio, the thought occurred to me, these people are gonna think I can't hold a job. Well, thank you all so much for being here. And I love being here with Ivanka and, of course, Linda McMahon. Before I start, I want to introduce you to four women leaders at the Department of Transportation who are currently leading 4 of the major modes. One is not here because she's in Detroit, but let me introduce Jane Williams, head of the Federal Transit Administration. Jane, stand up, let everybody see you. Heidi King is the acting administrator for National Highway Transportation Safety Administration. She's in Detroit for the Detroit Auto Show. But we have Kathy Gaudreau, who's the acting chair for Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration from Louisiana. And then we have Brandy Hendrickson, acting administrator for Federal Highway Administration from Indiana. I am so proud of them, and they're providing great leadership. Well, since President Trump was elected, America's stock market, economy, job creation, and capital investments have all taken off. From the very beginning, this president has made America's economy and workers his top priority. Transportation infrastructure plays a vital role in all of this. It's the backbone of the economy and connects people with essential services such as jobs, education, healthcare. It also boosts our country's global competitiveness by increasing productivity across industries and increasing our quality of life. But today, our nation's infrastructure is aging. We're seeing increased congestions on our roads and in our airspace. And by some estimates, delays and lost fuel cost our countries about $160 billion annually. Our ports, inland waterways, and public transit systems are also in need of refurbishing. If our country is to remain competitive and produce good jobs, the infrastructure must be addressed. Well, we have a president who is a builder, and he understands our country's infrastructure needs. And so that is why the White House has proposed a plan to revitalize and rebuild our critical infrastructure. The proposal calls for $1 trillion in infrastructure investments over the next 10 years, and it calls upon 17 different federal agencies to all work together. Transportation is only one part of the infrastructure proposal. There's also water, energy, broadband, veterans hospitals, rural America, and transformative technologies. These are all other parts of this very vital infrastructure proposal. As you have heard, regulatory reform is another very key part of the infrastructure. And our department and departments throughout the federal government are making a great deal of headway in reducing the regulatory burden on families and job creators. So just in the Department of Transportation, for example, early in 2017, we launched reforms to reduce unnecessary, duplicative, and overly burdensome rules and regulations. We all care about the environment and protecting the public, but when regulations are duplicative and they are overly burdensome, they don't perform the job. They don't help what they're supposed to be doing. So in addition, the department is simplifying and streamlining the permitting and approval processes for new infrastructure. And here are some real-world examples that demonstrate why permitting reforms are needed. In 1936, it took only 5 years to build the massive Hoover Dam. By comparison, an additional runway at Taos, New Mexico, just recently took 19 years to complete because of permitting and approval process. That's not the worst of it. I went to visit Alaska in August of 2017, where the Department of Transportation was finally able to announce that another federal agency cleared the way for a new road called Sterling Highway to be built. Among other things, this road will provide year-round access to medical care for a small, remote Alaskan community. It took 35 years to get that approval. America cannot afford these delays and costs. They not only impact the economy, but also the quality of life. And so the department has already made significant progress in implementing the President's directive to cut red tape and regulatory costs. So under this president, this administration, costs associated with new Department of Transportation regulations are now negative. It's a minus $317 million in 2017 and will be minus $500 million in 2018. So we are actually saving taxpayers nearly $800 million in unnecessary burdensome regulations just in 2017 and 2018 alone. Pretty impressive. But what that means is that the government is off our backs and that people, real Americans, are able to carry on their lives, take care of their families, and have the freedom that they need to do so. Let me close by emphasizing that safety is always the department's top priority. In 2016, over 37,000 people died in motor vehicle crashes. And that is why this administration is also encouraging the development of new safety technology. We want to spare families this tragedy and improve the quality of life for communities all across America. So with that, I am so glad to see all of you. Thank you so much for braving this cold weather to be with us, but it's going to be a wonderful afternoon. Thanks again.
Thank you, Secretary Chow. And as I said when we first started, we were going to let our very great panel here take a few questions, which I'm really excited about letting them take that role for the next little bit. And so I'm going to move over to some of the extended panel there on the end, and we'll take a few questions from them. And I'll test this out. Maybe. There we go. And since you're on the end and closest, how about I start with you, and I'll let you guys take the questions here.
My name is Sharon Lavelle, and I'm from Atlanta, Georgia. And I had a question about the new tax reform bill. How will it spark the economy?
Hi, Sharon. Hi. Welcome. Thank you. Thank you for being testing. Thank you for being here with us and contributing to this dialogues. We appreciate it. So I think first and foremost, when we think about the framework for what we wanted to accomplish through long overdue tax reform, we wanted to provide true tax relief to middle-income families, and we wanted to enable American businesses to be competitive in a global landscape. Additionally, we wanted to simplify a cumbersome and outdated and overweighed with special interest tax code. And I'm sure all of you know exactly what I'm talking about, given the nods. But in thinking through how we were going to really fuel economic growth, and you specifically asked about the business side, if you think about the rest of the developed world and what their tax rates are relative to ours, in America under the previous tax code, our rate was at 35%, making us the highest taxed corporate. We had the highest corporate tax in the whole of the developed world. So just intuitively, when you think about encouraging economic investment, when businesses are contemplating where to locate, and certainly, you know, as people are coming into the economy, leaving schools, the world is a lot smaller than it used to be, and there's a lot of mobility that people have, and a lot of thought goes into where they choose to locate, and we want them to be locating right here in this country. So we're going to be creating the environment through this legislation, coupled with what Administrator McMahon mentioned about aggressive deregulation, to really take the brakes off the American economy, American entrepreneurs, and American innovation. And we think that those two things will really encourage businesses to invest here and then ultimately create what we're looking for, which is increased productivity, increased profitability for those businesses, so they invest back into their workforce, help us grow wages, and create jobs and opportunities for all Americans. And we're starting to see that bear fruit just through administrative actions, but with tax reform kicking in, we're going to see a whole lot more of it. And I think companies, the optimism we're seeing from them in with just the announcement of comprehensive tax reform having been passed, has led to over 100 businesses already stepping up to the plate and investing back in their workforces in the form of bonuses, in some cases, such as last week, the country's largest employer offering their workers expanded paid maternity and paternity leave. So we're very excited to a whole lot more of that. Thanks.
Do we have any other questions from this group now that I've put Sharon on the spot and she went first? She broke the ice for the crowd. Also, just for the crowd's benefit, want to give a little background. Most of these ladies are small business owners, members of state legislative bodies. But if you guys don't mind, if you could introduce yourself on the front end and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, I'm State Senator Lisa Baker from the 20th District in northeastern Pennsylvania. I represent 5 counties in the northern part of the state.
I'm Shayna Greenwood. I am from Greensboro, North Carolina, and I'm an administrative assistant.
I'm Bunrath Lim. I'm a managing partner for the Outback Steakhouse in Maryland.
Don't hold back. Don't forget to ask a question. They're prepped and ready. They're better than
Okay.
I'm State Senator Camera Bartolotta. I represent southwestern Pennsylvania, 3 different counties. I've been a business owner for 30 years. I also, you're singing my song with the regulation because in Pennsylvania we have some of the toughest. And we'll talk later because I've got a history with some professional wrestlers with a film. So we'll go there. So I'm loving this panel. But my question is, as a business owner of 30 years, what is it that this new tax reform is going to do to help small business owners specifically?
I heard from small businesses, there we go, from small businesses, because I've been out touring the country, and I've been to about 31 states now, and I've been to about half of the SBA district offices. And what I've heard, and I've conducted business roundtables and toured small businesses during that time, and what I heard from every small business owner was that if I get a tax cut, I'm going to take that money, I'm going to reinvest it in my business. Either I will hire more employees, I'll be able to raise wages, I can provide more benefits, I can open a new location, whatever that is, that money in the pocket for those business owners. And so therefore, this tax reform package, not only for, a lot of the pass-through companies, capping that at the 25% rate, but each tax bracket, just like all taxpayers, will result in reduction in taxes paid. And it's just an incredible boost, to our small business owners. And so I'm pleased to see that we have entrepreneurs who are stepping up to the plate. As Ivanka mentioned, the enthusiasm for this tax reform package and the optimism that's in the country. And from SBA's perspective, first quarter of fiscal 2018 versus the prior quarter, we were up 18% in guaranteed loans to small businesses for startups, which is an incredible indicator of where our businesses are going to continue to grow. So for our small businesses, this is a great lift for them, and we're looking forward to seeing more of them start.
And I may just add to that small businesses will be able to deduct 20% of their taxable income. So that is amazing in and of itself. So from 20% of their income they can deduct from taxable revenue. So very, very exciting. And obviously, I'd mentioned before that these will be the lowest tax rate small businesses will have enjoyed in a little bit over 80 years. So by leveling the playing field for small business owners, it will be essential for their continued growth and prosperity. Another element of the tax plan that I think is going to be very beneficial for all business owners, especially small business owners, is 100% expensing of major capital investments, so non-structure capital investments. And
that's really huge,
it's
too, Ivanka.
huge if you think about, and what are we trying to accomplish?
Yeah.
We're trying to enable productivity. We're trying to encourage people to invest back into their businesses, into their workforce and into their businesses. And to do that, they need to upgrade. So just like we have deteriorating infrastructure in this country, we also have deteriorating capabilities in our plants, in our manufacturing facilities, our farm equipment. So for small business owners to know that they'll be able to get immediate deducting of 100% of that expenditure for 5 years and then tapering it off thereafter, I think it's going to create an enormous amount of investment into American business and be very beneficial for our small business owners.
Thank you. Do we have a question for Secretary Chow? I'll mix it up since we're kind of walking down the line. Plus, it's really fun to get to be in charge of the panel because I'm used to having questions shouted at me. So I'm kind of getting into this, so we may go a little long just because this is fun.
Panelists and let them introduce
Yeah,
themselves.
absolutely.
Again, I'm Sharon Lavelle, and I'm a jewelry store owner of over 20 years in the Atlanta area.
Great.
So I'm ecstatic about the tax reform bill.
And for all your wedding rings. You can give your husbands or boyfriends her contact information. She'll be happy to help them out later.
I'm going to have to
Valentine's
send
Day's
some
coming up.
people your way.
Well,
My
since-
secret skill, matchmaking.
Since Sarah gave me a lovely plug, it's called Dunwoody Diamonds USA.
I'm Margaret Dayton. I am a senator from the state of Utah, educated and worked as a registered nurse, and then by choice, a stay-at-home mom for a number of years before being elected to the Utah legislature. I will save my question until everybody has a chance to be introduced, but can I just say how delighted I am to be here with you ladies and want to thank you for your contributions to making to the greatness of America and for all you do for women and the families they love. We appreciate that.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jan Jones from Jackson, Georgia. I'm a full-time mommy of 2 amazing children, and I'm also the founder of the nonprofit Animal Rescue.
Great.
Raina Casey from Georgia, Atlanta, Georgia. I'm a 40-year entrepreneur, small business owner, now mostly retired. But I'm so happy and so grateful for all of you ladies and for our fantastic president.
Thank you.
Amy Reese Anderson from Utah, entrepreneur that grew a healthcare technology company and sold it a few years back and became an angel investor and also a contributor for Forbes. And I also run a foundation that encourages young people to go after entrepreneurship as a way to become self-reliant.
Great.
Hi, I'm Shannon Perrin. I'm from Marietta, Georgia. I work in the insurance field. I run an insurance firm for 9 years, and my husband and I have 6 children.
Great.
Someone with a question for Secretary Chow.
I actually mentioned, I was just in Detroit, and Chrysler Fiat made an announcement that because of the president's tax cut, they were going to move 2,000 jobs from Mexico to the United States, and they were giving $2,000 bonuses to their employees because they now, as Administrator McMahon mentioned, they now have more money. They can give it in increased salaries, increased benefits. They can bring jobs back. So this is just one, not a small company, a large company who has now made this a very, very big step because of the president's tax cut. So they're going to bring back 2,000 jobs from Mexico to America. Well, that's pretty amazing.
So Sarah would like us to ask questions of Secretary Chow, and I'm glad to. Would you like to speak more to how this new tax reform will generate more taxable income? You've mentioned some, but if you want to speak more, I'm sure we're all interested in that.
Well, I think, our economy, in 2009, it went into the recession, and it took a long time to come back. Part of that was the confidence factor as well. With this president, who is well-established in the private sector, who knows about business, the stock market, the economy, the job creators have faith that he will lead the economy in a very robust, positive way. That is why we are seeing unemployment rate down to its lowest level, 4.1%. We are also seeing productivity increases. We're on track to being hitting 3.0, basically 3% GDP growth. All of this means that Americans will become more prosperous, we can have more money in our own pockets, we can take better care of our families. So when we have this kind of tax reform, where we were the 3rd largest overall taxation rate, personal plus corporate, number 1 in corporate, but number 3 in personal and corporate tax rates, and to bring it down to 20%, it is an amazing accomplishment. And also the fact that it was done in basically 6 months. In 1986, when tax reform was done then, it took 2 years. So this is a president that wants to see results. He demands it, and he wants it for America and for all of us.
Thank you, Secretary Chow. We've got as much fun as I'm having doing this part of the process. We've got time for one more question, so if we've got one last question here, absolutely.
Thank you. I'd like to follow up on your questions and your comments about inspiring and encouraging young women to pursue careers, non-traditional careers in STEM and related technologies. You mentioned some of what the administration has been doing, but could you share a little bit more about the vision and the goal I think we all know that to be competitive, we need young people, especially young women, to pursue that. So if you could share that, we'd appreciate it.
Thank you. Could you remind me of your name? Lisa. Hi, Lisa. So we are, as an administration, deeply committed to ensuring that all Americans have the skills they need to succeed. So this starts in our classrooms and really continues with lifelong learning to ensure that workers who are displaced or with the rise of automation cease to have a job, that there's an opportunity and a path for them to be retrained and to be able to create to be able to re-enter the workforce in a meaningful capacity and with a good paying job. So on every front, we're committed to this. And as we look out over the horizon and we see where there is opportunity and where there's increasing opportunity, STEM fields are becoming ever critical and ever more important. And when you think about this through the lens of gender, women have fought very hard to get to where they are today, and there's still much more work to be done. But I'm actually concerned that we start to make negative progress in terms of closing the gender wage gap if we continue to be so underrepresented in the fields that are so promising and offer the most high growth and highest wages. So we're making a big push both for our younger students and for those following a technical education apprenticeship track for inclusion and to ensure that women are equally represented and minorities are equally represented in this field. So part of it is early exposure. So in the presidential memorandum that directed the Department of Education to prioritize STEM and computer science education, there was also guidance issued that ensured that these programs and these grants were designed with racial and gender diversity in mind. So we think it's very, very important to be thinking about this at an early age to get young girls engaged in these STEM fields, and we're very committed to doing that. And we think it's critical to filling those jobs that are currently vacant. So while we have very low unemployment rate, we also have the highest number of vacant jobs on record in several decades. So there are close to 6 million jobs today that are going unfilled. And in large part, it's due to the skill gap, where people don't have the skills or aren't geographically located where the jobs are. And I'm not talking four-year college. So high school or basic or some post-secondary education. So we're looking to realign those students and those young Americans and mid-career and older Americans with the vacant jobs.
And
Thank you so much. Oh, sorry.
Could I just add one thing too? And was it a bill? I might get confused. A bill or an executive order? I think it was a bill put forth by Senator Ernst that the president was encouraging women who graduate with their degree in STEM or engineering that they practice in that field. So many women graduate with those degrees, and yet they'll take a job doing something else. So we want to encourage women not only early exposure, majoring in those fields, but then when you get out and you've got it in hand, push forth, for yourselves and go after those jobs and practice in those jobs because we need that.
We've been finding that, and much research backs the fact that more than 50% of the people graduating with STEM degrees and women graduating with STEM degrees don't go into STEM-related fields. When there is an apprenticeship experience and when people learn while you earn training and experience through their education, they're much, much more likely to actually enter those fields. So creating the connection between real work, opportunity, and education is, again, very essential. So we're working very closely with the Department of Labor, with the Department of Education to ensure there's that seamless connection so that people learning STEM skills see a path towards a meaningful career.
And you need a lot of engineers.
We certainly do. I might also add, this is not just a government issue. I think all of us who are thought leaders and leaders in our community, if we see some young women, we should be encouraging them to explore their, potential and really explore all types of occupations, including those in the STEM fields.
Thank you so much. Even though we were having a great time, I promised that I would get us out on time. I know a lot of you have very busy schedules, but thank you so much to our panel and to all of the members that helped ask questions, and certainly to all of you who attended. And we look forward to continuing to work with you on behalf of the Trump administration to empower women and to drive that message more and more every single day. And again, thank you so much for being here, and thank you to our great panel.